Well, hello again, and welcome to another episode of Sermon B-Sides. My name is Rusten. I'm one of the pastors at Cormdale Church, and I'm here with my buddy and pal, and the guy who likes to make me laugh right before the introduction, Pastor Jon. How you doing, Pastor Jon?
Namaste. I'm doing
Namaste.
good. This is our last B-Sides for Exodus and
Summer.
drum roll for the summer. Yeah, because we are rocking the Psalms. And then here's a strange thought, Rustin. In 2.5 months from now, is that right? 2.5 months? Yeah, 3 months? Probably 3 months. We'll be doing B-Sides on Romans.
I know. That's gonna be exciting.
Insane.
Yes, those are gonna be some. Those are gonna be some fun B-Sides, I think.
I think so too. We won't have
all the
44 of them like we did for this.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, Romans is coming. That'll be fun.
It'll be fun. Romans is one of the most referenced books. It's one of the most studied books. But I think that there's a reason why you're teaching on Romans at this point in your pastoral time.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those books that I've described it as Everest. It's a theological Everest in terms of and think about the history of the book. Yeah, I'm excited to be working through that.
It's it is so. I mean, I've started doing the study guides and reading introductions and the research stuff. And it's like it is so theologically rich. You don't have, I guess maybe I'm feeling it a little bit more because you're coming off the tales of Exodus where you have like longer narrative sections and the epistles by nature don't have long histories in them. It's just dense theological, ethical, and Romans touches like on everything you could possibly imagine, but really, really basic foundational theological ideas and categories. And anyways,
the narrative books, you have paragraphs and moments where after a couple paragraphs there's a dramatic turn. But in in Romans or an epistle, it's like there's a dramatic turn after every 2 sentences.
Yes,
it's like in the sentences matter just like the characters doing stuff matter. So it's a very different thing teaching through an epistle versus teaching through a narrative, and teaching through that one in particular where there's such tight argumentation being made. Is going to be fun to work through. And edifying.
I am very much looking forward to it.
Well,
but
that day is not today.
That day is not today.
It is time for Exodus 39 and 40, the last 2 chapters of the massively important book of Exodus.
Yes.
And interestingly, we'll touch on some of the themes of chapter 39 and then chapter 40. One of the things that chapter 39 is all about. I mean, it's a continuation of the construction stuff, but there's a shift from furniture and curtains to attire, right? To priestly attire, priestly garments. And This is the second time fashion, exactly, priestly fashion. Yes. This is the second time we're given the details, but you had mentioned that this kind of placing of these priestly garments at this point to something important, and I think you specifically brought out how this is a new creation reference. Yes. And I thought maybe you could start by unpacking that. And this is the second time also I think there's been a new creation reference, but I think that in this iteration of the construction, the priestly garments come last, whereas I don't think in the instructions given they come last. I think they come like maybe second to last or something. So
sort of, yeah. So the earlier, you can look at this while I'm walking through it. But earlier in yeah, no, it does. So earlier in Exodus, when you have God giving the instructions to Moses, and the reason I'm doing this, I want to establish like there is a new creation rhythm in
Yes.
Exodus that's being repeated. So
Yep.
when God gives those instructions to Moses, there are 7 breaks in like 8 chapters where it's, and God said to Moses, and God said to Moses, and God said to Moses. There's 7 of those, and those 7 parallel the 7 days of creation in which God is speaking and forming
Yep.
and creating a world. And so that structure is meant to tell us that God's making something new, right?
Yes.
God is
Yep.
this is about this story is about how God is making a new world, how he's it's about recreation, right? And just the structure of that is enough to tell us that in that original order from, I think it's chapter 25 to 33 or something like that. There is a correlation, though I can't recall all of them right now. James Jordan goes into a lot of
Yeah.
detail on this, but a correlation between the things that are created on each day of the 7 days,
Yeah.
and the order of the things in the temple that are created and how
Yeah.
they correlate to the different spheres, the sky above, the earth below, the water, the lights, all of that stuff. And it's pretty complex. But the main things in that order, the 7th day is a day of rest. The 6th day is the creation of man, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
this order of God is forming a place. That's days 1 through 5. Day 6, God creates the man to rule in the place. Day 7 is rest. Okay. So that's
Yes. Yeah.
actually the order in Exodus. You have all the instructions to build the stuff, and then you have the priestly garments, and then you have Sabbath. So you're now repeating that order again. Now you're carrying out the instructions that were given earlier. And the pinnacle, when Moses is retelling all the details of the construction and the building of the tabernacle, the pinnacle of that story is the priestly garments. The priestly garments come last. Why is that? Because that's the pinnacle of the creation story. It's also the pinnacle of the ultimate redemptive story. Like the creation is waiting for the man to come in and to rule.
Yeah.
And so, as you're reading the narrative of Exodus, and you get to, okay, now we have a temple or a tabernacle, and now we have an altar, and we have an ark, and we have the most holy place. We got the lampstand and the incense and all that stuff, and everything's there. It's like, okay, now we're waiting. We're going to introduce the man. And so that is the climax of the building of this space, is the garments of the priest, because the priest is like the new Adam entering the garden to serve and minister and to rule.
I've often, I think I described it when because I got to preach on the construction part, and or the instruction part, and you got to preach on the construction part.
Yeah.
I described it as, like, after kind of talking about all the things it was, I described it as like a Jesus costume. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
It's a picture of everything about the garment talks about something that Jesus does. And so you have now a creation story where the man being put, like a creation, project, where the man being put in it, right, is what Jesus is going to do. So he's the first man of this new creation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so that is in your sermon, you said that this is the most, I think you said this is the most important chapter of Exodus.
Yeah.
And so I thought maybe you could unpack more about, obviously what we just said is really obviously important if this is what this part is all about, but what did you mean by this is the most important part?
Yeah, so part of me was trying to like shake people up a little bit, because there's a tendency to be like, okay, we're at the end of the story. This is literally the 49th sermon in this series, and but I genuinely mean that. Like this is one of the most important parts of the entire book, because the priestly function is the key to unlocking all that the tabernacle is supposed to do for the people, right? So if you have the altar for sacrifice and for worship, and the place where atonement is going to be made, and you have the Ark of the Covenant, where, you know, on the Day of Atonement, the high priest goes in and he makes atonement for the people, right? If you have all of those elements, but you do not have a priest to make those sacrifices and carry the people in and offer the prayers for the people, all of these things that the tabernacle is supposed to do can't be done.
Yeah.
They're there, but you need a priest to function as that mediator, as the one who represents God to the people, and the people to God. And without that, you don't have that problem of sin being dealt with. You have all the pieces there, but they can't actually be dealt with because you need a priest. We need a priest. So that's why I'm saying this chapter unlocks all of the blessings, all the benefit that the tabernacle is supposed to provide for the people. It's the function of the priest that unlocks that. And if you don't have the garments, then the priest can't function, right?
So there is, you know, when we went through the tabernacle stuff, one of the things you said is that the entire tabernacle is saying, God wants you to return to Eden, right? But the priest is kind of saying, you can't return to Eden, but you need a priest who can go there, you know, first, and then bring you in.
Yeah.
And that reminds me very much of I think when Jesus I think it's in John, when Jesus tells his disciples, where I'm going, you cannot go.
Yeah.
But I go there to prepare a place for you.
Yeah.
And then I will come and bring you. Right.
Yeah. Which means they couldn't go there yet.
Yes.
Right? Because if they can't go there and he goes to prepare a place for them, that doesn't make any sense. It must be they can't go there yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but similarly, then if that's the situation, you can't go there. You need what Jesus did, so you can. That's the unlocking of Eden. And there's a lot of Edenic things going on in that Holy of Holies too, with the cherubim, and Adam and Eve are kicked out. This priest comes in and he passes through the cherubim, and, you know, talking about Hebrews and how it talks about how he offered, you know, not the sacrifice of bulls and goats, but his own blood. Yeah. So he's both the priest and the sacrifice.
Yeah.
He passes through the swords of the cherubim to bring the people in.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. It's like it's all there. It's all there in Exodus. It's crazy.
Everything's there, and if this has to do with a little bit of what's going on online right now with Israel and stuff.
Oh yeah. But let's talk about that for a little bit.
I think I'm gonna do that tomorrow. We're gonna do a special Blitz podcast. But it is so clear when you look at the priest and the function of the priest, and how he mediates and he carries the people, and the sacrifice and all of those things, and how Hebrews then tells us that Christ is the great high priest. He's the better sacrifice. He offers, you know, a sacrifice to, you know, he's going into the very presence of God. It's his blood. It's so clear that Christ has fulfilled all of these things in the tabernacle and in the temple, that there's continuity between old and new. There's continuity between Israel and the church. And there's a lot of really, I think I would stress, like, great brothers who love the Lord and they take the Bible seriously. But there's a dispensationalist thing that wants to separate these as two entirely different kind of programs and two different people of God. And when you see the continuity and the foreshadowing and the typology in the priesthood and the tabernacle, the temple, and then in the New Testament with Christ and he, it's like how are these two separate? The continuity is
Yeah.
overwhelming, and it makes the
Yeah.
argument that there are two people with two different plans. That being Israel and the church.
Yeah.
It just makes it really hard to swallow, honestly.
Yeah. And I think about one of the things I've been thinking about lately because of all this stuff going on is the promise given to Abraham and how it includes that Abraham would be the father of many nations. And so
Mm-hmm.
there is this fatherhood implies some form of covenantal connection,
Yeah.
right? Like you that language itself is covenantal, and it also that means that the promise from the very get-go to Abraham, which is what a lot of dispies look to say this is all about Israel. But the problem from the promise from the very beginning was for an international people. It was
Yeah.
a people that was of many people, and you see that hints and little applications of that along the way in the Old Testament, like the mixed multitude coming out of Exodus. You have these different Gentiles who come, and even just the genealogy of Jesus.
Yeah.
The Gentiles involved there, and the when Jesus comes, it's like, yeah, obviously the fulfillment of those promises is going to come about, and so you see this explosion of the gospel going out and the Spirit filling Gentiles, and the
Yes.
question given at like the Jerusalem council is like, what do we do with these people who have the Spirit? And it's like, well, they're they don't they don't need to be circumcised because they already have the Spirit. It's
Yeah.
like baptize them,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
that there is a and the question was being asked not because the question was like, don't they? Well, the question was, don't they need to become like ethnically Jewish? And by ethnically, I meant you became ethnically Jewish by getting circumcised in the Old Testament. That's how you became
Yes.
ethnically Jew.
Yeah.
That's what happens, and they accepted. I mean, that's the ethnics and covenantal status were kind of the same thing in the Old Testament, and so, but the question is, like, shouldn't they become uh, ethnically Jewish in order to and get circumcised in order to really be God's people? And the thing is that no, there are different people. Like that wasn't the answer given. No, there are different people. It's like no, they are. They have the Spirit, so
Yeah.
they don't need that.
They are the Israel of God. That's Paul's
They are the Israel
exact
of
words
God.
in
Galatians.
Galatians. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
The Israel of God. Okay, we're off, but
Yeah. Okay.
continuity,
Where are we?
continuity matters.
Yes. Yes. This is what B-sides are for. Rabbit trails.
That is
Okay.
true. That is true. Okay, where were
So,
we?
going back to the tabernacle and the priestly stuff,
Yeah.
we already kind of established the importance of that priestly role. Now let's transition a little bit to the themes of Exodus 40 now, the last chapter. One of the things that I believe you did in that sermon was you contrasted, I think it might have been even a small comment, but you contrasted the tabernacle with the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
And I think there's, in my mind, I'm also thinking about like tabernacle and golden calf. Like there's some similar things going on there. But what did you mean by that contrast? What was the point being made there by tabernacle versus Tower of Babel? How are they different, and what
Well,
does that teach us?
yeah. So behind, I want to go back a little bit.
Sure.
So I wanted to say something
Do
earlier
it.
that I wanted to say, but it serves to prove like we're talking about one story, and so
Yes.
you don't want to isolate like, okay, here's this thing that's being built, and then this thing over here, and they're not related. No, they are related. There's one story. And when you were
Yes.
talking earlier about the priest, and I don't know if we got into it, but the priest is literally carrying the people into the
Yes.
tabernacle with him, like
On the stones. Yes.
on the stone. Yeah, careful how you say that. He had 2 stones on his shoulder, right? And the 12 names of the tribes were inscribed on those onyx stones. And then he had these 12 gems on the breastplate, and they had the name of each tribe. And so,
Yeah.
he's carrying them into the presence of God. He is representing not just himself and his family. He is representing all of the people of God, right? You can look forward and go, that's what Jesus does. right, as our great high priest. He is carrying us on his shoulders, on his heart, into the presence of God. Yes, yes. And also you have to look back and go, what did Adam do in the garden?
Yes.
Right? He was carrying us when he screwed up. Right? He carried us out, and we got a priest that's got to carry us back in. And
he carried us in the stones.
Yeah. You had to go there. So when Paul says
I think Hebrews refers to it as the loins of Abraham.
That is true. That is so true. Yes. So golly, now I lost my place.
Sorry.
So Christ is the second and better Adam, right? And it helps us to understand that Adam was our representative in the garden, right? He wasn't just acting on his own behalf. He was carrying all of humanity. That's why his sin has been passed down to all of humanity, and that representation then happens in the priesthood with the names, and then it is ultimately fulfilled in Christ, who carries his people into the presence of God back into Eden. Okay, anyways, so there you got to be thinking there's one story, and so when you see similarities, like you need to pay attention to, because they mean something. So that was a long way of saying I could have just said that. So building is important. And in Genesis 11, you've got people who want to come together and make a name and make their name great. And so they build this tower, the Tower of Babel, up into the heavens. And it's a total disaster, right? They're going to come together and make their name great. And what happens is they are humiliated and they're divided, because now they don't speak the same language, and they can't participate together and network together, and the exact opposite of what they were trying to accomplish happened, which is what sin always does, right? Sin promises you the world and it gives you hell. So so you learn very early on, you cannot build this thing, you cannot reach into the heavens, you can't get up. It doesn't matter how technologically advanced you are, how many people you are, how united you are, you can't do it. But the opposite of that is not impossible. God can come down, and I talked about Jacob's dream of the ladder, in which he sees that, oh no, there are angels ascending and descending. At the top of the ladder, he sees the Lord. It's like there is this connection, but it's God's connection. It's not man's connection. It's his initiative. It's his plan. So the significance of that of Babel is, again, a contrast of people trying to build this thing up and to make them great and to accomplish this thing and to reach into the heavens. That's an utter failure. And it's so funny that I just imagine that tower was probably pretty, like, humanly speaking, impressive. When we were in Belize last month, like, we saw some of these Mayan temples, and like it's pretty impressive. But the tabernacle really isn't that impressive. You're just looking at it, it's like really
true.
Goats,
very true.
There's lots of precious metals involved in it, but
yes.
But that also speaks to incarnation, I think. Like, you look at, like, the great dwelling places that the kings of the world make for themselves, right? And then what is the king of all the world? What kind of dwelling place does he make for himself?
Yeah.
He comes,
a baby,
at least initially, in humility. Yeah, baby. So so anyways, the contrast is God in grace coming down. God in grace coming to us, dwelling with us, versus us in pride, going up, reaching up, building up. That's the contrast.
And you see that. I guess the rather than them building the Tower of Babel, you have here, when the tabernacle's made, this glory coming down upon it, right?
Yeah.
Coming down upon this glory cloud, coming down upon the tabernacle, which is like, it's interesting because like, yeah, you mentioned the non impressiveness of this tent in a lot of ways, and
It's a tent.
there is yeah, it's a tent. There's something about it that is I mean, that's what copies are always like too,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like copies are, you think about a sketch drawing of your spouse versus the real thing, right?
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of things that are similar, but if you were to compare glories between the real thing and the sketch, you're talking about universes apart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's almost like the tabernacle is intentionally wearing its copiness. It's like there's something, there's a veil. I think that the language about the incarnation is that his flesh was a veil of his glory, right? That's one of the things that is, I think in tabernacle is a very veiled thing. There are things about it that are referred to as veils, like the veil that blocks the access to the holy place.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting similarities there, but I think that the real difference there is not the tabernacle and the stuff. It's that the glory comes down.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
The glory comes down and rests on the tent. That's the impressive thing. That's the sign of, and that's probably a form of copy too of God's, eternal glory coming down in this cloud that is, striking and terrifying, and yet it's also leading them. It's going to, lead them places, and it's going to be bright at nighttime, and it's going to be white during the day, so that it gives them light at night. There's a lot of amazing things about the glory cloud. So that's a neat contrast, and I think that there's the basic message there is like, you're not going to build your way up to God. God has to come down to you, and He does graciously.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
One of the things you emphasized in this last sermon too was the significance of God's presence, and you said something that was, I think, really insightful, which is there's a danger in thinking of God's grace exclusively in terms of forgiveness of sins. And you had mentioned that in terms of the importance of God's presence as revealed in this scene at the end. So could you unpack that a little bit? What's the danger in thinking of God's grace exclusively in the terms of forgiveness of sins?
Yes. I'm trying to see if I can find that. I had a J.I. Packer quote from there. So what I was trying to get at is that if we imagine that the entire the whole point of grace is to get us out of trouble with God, meaning we're under condemnation because of our sin. Christ died; He took the penalty of our sin, so we're no longer under condemnation. We're off the hook, right? And all of those things are 100% true. But the forgiveness that we receive and not being under condemnation is a means to an end. Like it's meant to move us somewhere. Yeah. We are no longer under condemnation so that we can be the sons of God, so that we can be reconciled to God our Father. The whole point. And so Packer's quote is about justification. And I kind of thought, I was like, I wonder if this will like rub some people the wrong way. Because you can almost hear it wrongly to be like, justification doesn't matter. It's like, no, justification absolutely matters.
Yeah.
But it mattered. You want to read it?
Want me to read the quote?
Yeah.
It's adoption. Adoption is the highest privilege that the gospel offers, higher even than justification. To be right with God the judge is a great thing, but to be loved and cared for by God the Father is greater.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So it's in needing to understand that the reason that that we are forgiven, or there's a purpose for the forgiveness of sins.
Yes.
And it is far greater than just not being in trouble. Like the heart of forgiveness is
Yes.
reconciliation, right? It's like, that's the whole point is we are separated because of this offense, this transgression. And so God is forgiving that. He is upholding his righteousness and the law by Christ coming and obeying in our place, Christ coming and suffering in our place. Our sin is dealt with so that we can be brought back into the garden, so that we can have communion with God, that we can experience God's presence, God dwelling in us by his Spirit. And if you don't get that second part, if you just have forgiveness of sins, I can hear Bonhoeffer, like screaming, cheap grace, right? Because it's forgiveness of God without community with God. It gets you off the hook, but then you're just off to do your own thing. And that's not the goal of forgiveness. That's not why our sins are forgiven.
Yeah. That has a huge, it's like a huge motivator or application to true obedience and sanctification, because the heart that says I'm just right with the judge, sweet, and by the way, that judge always is willing to make me right with him, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, great, that judge is no longer a threat. That means I can do what I want to do, and I just have no penalty. Like that is.
We're seeing that logic play itself out in our streets right now, by the way.
Oh yes. That's
exactly what's going on.
And that plays out in a lot of Christians' hearts too, in terms of thinking about the importance of obedience. Because, like, if I'm only dealing with a judge, right, then all I really need is justification. And justification is being made righteous in the sight of the law. And if I've got that, no matter what I do, then it's like, well, great, I can do whatever I want and no penalty. And so but there's no motivation of communion with the very God you're offending with your sin, right? And so, but if adoption is the primary real thing, then it's like, okay, I've been brought into this family. I have a father who loved me so that he sent his son to purchase me from death, through dying, paying for my sins, so I could be justified. So now I could be brought back in where I was excluded from. Well, then that completely changes the way you think about sin, because now you get to live with them. And so you don't want to do the thing that caused Jesus to suffer. You don't want to do the thing that God hates.
Absolutely.
It's like, that's a completely different set of motivations than I just get to escape the punishment.
Yeah. It's like the first case, you go, well, I'm in trouble, and so grace gets me out of trouble. Rather than saying my trouble has led to me being estranged from my Creator. Yeah. And I need to be reconciled to my God to be made whole. And so God in his grace forgives me so that he can bring me home. Because that's really what I want. I don't want to just get out of trouble. Like, my problem is I'm not home. Yeah. I need to go home.
Yep. Yeah. And that's behind the importance of presence. Like, God has promised to be present with his people. And that's amazing. I think it's one of those things we don't understand the costliness of that. For God to be present with us. And it's a wonderful grace. And it's one that I think there are practical applications here that are kind of hard to put into words, with like, that might affect how you think about how you spend your time too. Like, just reading God's word and slowing down and just acknowledging that, like, God is with you and he's speaking to you and he loves you. And that's a very different thing. Like that. Yeah. That's a very different thing than just like, I got this theological list of things really tied into a nice knot. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I have to do my quiet time and stick on my Bible plan, which, by the way, is great. Yeah. But you can miss the point of that. Is like, well, why do people talk to you? So that you can know them.
Yes.
So like, make sure
Yeah.
you're not forgetting to know the God who's talking to you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that's a great way to end this episode and end Exodus. It's all about knowing God and about being brought back home, freed from slavery.
Yeah.
Well, Jon, any final words for the book of Exodus since you we're done with it, sort of.
Since we're done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I learned a ton, like just personally going through Exodus and understanding the details. And, you know, we've talked about the meticulous details of the tabernacle. Like I didn't understand how all of those things, like what they represented, and they're not arbitrary. And I think there's a tendency to like, just kind of, you know, scroll past those, you know, cruise past those texts that maybe aren't the point of it, or the beauty of it isn't immediately obvious, but there's just a depth of knowledge and understanding in the book. And like we've said multiple times, like if you understand Exodus, you're going to understand so much more of the rest of your Bible, and specifically the Gospels. You're going to start seeing so many connections. So yeah, we've gone through it, but go through it again. You can read through it again.
Yep.
If you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good way to end it, Jon.
All right.
Let's close it out. And until next time, everybody, trust Christ, go to church, and love your neighbor. See ya.
Until September. See ya.
Until September.